What would you do if the husband you thought would never stand up for himself suddenly handed you divorce papers, right in front of your entire family? How did I go from controlling the story to watching my whole life fall apart, all because I told him not to ruin our friendship and ignored every warning sign? Can someone like me really claim to be the victim, or was I just blind to the consequences waiting for me? Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The divorce papers hit the coffee table with a crisp thud that silenced every conversation in the room. My mother-in-law, Anna's teacup, froze halfway to her lips. My own mother, Harriet, gasped audibly. My 7-year-old daughter, Amelia, looked up from her coloring book with wide, confused eyes. "Simon," I whispered, staring at my husband of 9 years, as he stood there in his pressed khakis and button-down shirt, looking more composed than I'd seen him in months. "What is this?" "It's exactly what it looks like, Eira." His voice was steady, almost clinical. "I'm filing for divorce. The papers are already submitted to the court." My heart hammered against my ribs. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not in front of everyone. Simon never made scenes. He was the quiet one, the pushover, the man who let me handle all the big decisions while he buried himself in spreadsheets and tax returns. "You can't be serious," I said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow even to my own ears. "Simon, honey, we can talk about this privately. You're embarrassing yourself." But he wasn't embarrassed. If anything, he looked relieved. "No more private talks, Eira. No more chances for you to twist things around or make me feel like I'm the problem." He pulled out his phone and set it on the table. "Would you like me to play the recording of you and Lucas discussing your weekend getaway plans? Or should I start with the restaurant receipts?" The blood drained from my face. How did he know about Lucas? How long had he been watching, collecting evidence while I thought he was just being his usual oblivious self? "I don't know what you think you heard, but—" "Daddy, what's divorce?" Amelia's small voice cut through my protest. Simon's expression softened as he knelt beside our daughter. "It means Mommy and Daddy won't live in the same house anymore, sweetheart. But we both still love you very much." "Is it because Mommy has been lying?" Amelia asked with the brutal honesty only children possess. The question hit me like a physical blow. Even my 7-year-old had noticed. Even she knew. 6 months earlier, everything had been normal. Well, normal for us. Simon worked his predictable 9 to 5 at Henderson and Associates, coming home every evening at exactly 6:15 p.m. with his briefcase and his quiet smile. I managed the front desk at Meridian Insurance, handling appointments and filing while dreaming of something more exciting. That's when Lucas Havel started working in our claims department. At 29, Lucas had an easy charm that made everyone in the office gravitate toward him. He remembered people's coffee orders, asked about weekend plans, and actually listened to the answers. When he smiled at me during his first week, asking if I knew any good lunch spots nearby, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the thrill of being noticed. "Your husband's a lucky guy," he said one afternoon as we waited for the elevator after grabbing sandwiches from the deli across the street. "Is he?" I found myself saying. Sometimes I wonder if he even notices I exist. It was a throwaway comment, the kind of mild complaint married people make, but Lucas tilted his head with genuine concern. "What do you mean?" And suddenly, I was telling him everything. How Simon came home and immediately disappeared into his home office. How our conversations revolved around Amelia's schedule and household logistics. How I felt invisible in my own marriage. "You deserve better than that," Lucas said simply. Those 5 words changed everything. I started staying late at work, telling Simon I had extra filing to catch up on. Lucas and I would grab dinner at the little cafe downtown, talking for hours about books, movies, our dreams. He made me feel interesting again, like I had thoughts worth hearing. "You're wasted in that marriage," he said one evening over wine. "You're this vibrant, intelligent woman, and he's got you convinced you're just a housewife." "I'm not just anything," I protested, but his words felt like validation I'd been craving for years. When I got home that night, Simon was reading Amelia a bedtime story. He looked up with his usual gentle smile. "How was work? You've been putting in a lot of extra hours lately." "Just busy," I said, kissing the top of Amelia's head. "The new guy in claims is helping me reorganize the filing system." It wasn't technically a lie. Lucas was helping me remember who I used to be before I became someone's wife and mother. The next morning, my best friend Maya called while I was getting ready for work. "You sound different," she said. "Happier. What's going on?" I found myself telling her about Lucas, about our dinners and long conversations. "Good for you," Maya said immediately. "Simon's been taking you for granted for years. It's about time someone appreciated what they have." "It's not like that," I protested. "We're just friends. Friends who have romantic dinners and make you glow like a teenager. Honey, if Simon can't see what's right in front of him, that's his loss." Maya had never liked Simon. She thought he was boring, too quiet, too content with his simple life. She'd been telling me for years that I'd settled, that I deserved someone who matched my energy. "Just be careful," she added. "And maybe don't mention your new friend to the family. You know how Anna gets." Anna, Simon's mother, had always been protective of her eldest son. She'd never quite warmed to me, though she was polite enough. But Maya was right. Anna would definitely have opinions about my friendship with Lucas. That weekend, we had our monthly family dinner at our house. Simon's brother Jack brought his girlfriend, and both our mothers came over with their usual offerings: Anna's perfect roast beef and Harriet's store-bought dessert that she pretended to have made herself. "Eira seems distracted lately," Anna observed while we were setting the table. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I said quickly, "just busy at work." But it wasn't fine. Sitting there listening to Simon discuss tax season and Jack's latest construction project, I felt suffocated. These people were content with such small lives, such limited horizons. When Lucas texted me during dinner, asking about my day, I felt a flutter of excitement that had nothing to do with the conversation happening around me. "Who's texting?" Simon asked mildly. "Just Maya," I lied, slipping my phone back into my purse. After everyone left, Simon started loading the dishwasher while I put Amelia to bed. "Your mum seems worried about me," I said when I came back downstairs. Simon looked up from rinsing plates. "Are you okay? You have seemed a little distant lately." There it was, my opening to tell him how I'd been feeling, to explain that I needed more from our relationship. Instead, I felt defensive. "I'm fine, Simon. Not everything is about you." He blinked, clearly taken aback by my sharp tone. "I didn't say it was. I just thought maybe we could talk if something was bothering you." "Nothing's bothering me. Maybe you're the one who's distant. When's the last time we had a real conversation that wasn't about bills or Amelia's school?" Simon set down the plate he was holding and turned to face me fully. "We could have one right now." But I didn't want to have a conversation with Simon. I wanted to text Lucas back, to feel that spark of connection I'd been missing. "I'm tired," I said instead. "I'm going to bed." As I walked upstairs, I heard Simon sigh and return to the dishes. The sound made me feel guilty and resentful at the same time. Why should I feel bad for wanting more than this domestic routine? I texted Lucas from bed. "Family dinner. Kill me now." His response came immediately. "That bad?" "You have no idea. Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing into this life that was never really mine." "You're too amazing to disappear. Don't let them dim your light." I fell asleep smiling at my phone, while Simon worked late in his office downstairs. The next few weeks blurred together in a haze of stolen moments and rationalized choices. Lucas and I started meeting for coffee before work, then lunch, then drinks after hours. Each time, I told myself we were just friends, even as our conversations grew more intimate and our lingering glances lasted longer. "I have to ask," Lucas said one evening as we shared dessert at our usual cafe. "Are you happy in your marriage?" The question I'd been avoiding hung between us like a challenge. "It's complicated," I said finally. "It doesn't have to be." He reached across the table and touched my hand. "Life's too short to settle for complicated." I should have pulled my hand away, should have said something about boundaries and commitment. Instead, I let his fingers intertwine with mine and felt something electric pass between us. "Lucas, I know you feel it too," he said softly. "This connection we have, it's rare. I've never met anyone like you, Eira." When I got home that night, Simon was helping Amelia with a school project at the kitchen table. They looked up when I walked in, both smiling at me with such uncomplicated love that I felt a stab of guilt. "How was your girls' night with Maya?" Simon asked. Another lie I'd told without thinking. "Fine, just dinner and complaining about work." "Mummy, look!" Amelia held up her poster about butterflies. "Daddy helped me with the colours." "It's beautiful, baby." I kissed her forehead, avoiding Simon's eyes. Later, as we got ready for bed, Simon tried to initiate a conversation about our weekend plans. But I was distracted, replaying every moment with Lucas, analysing every word and touch. "Eira?" Simon's voice pulled me back to the present. "Did you hear what I said?" "Sorry, what?" "I asked if you wanted to take Amelia to the zoo on Saturday. It's supposed to be nice weather." The zoo. How perfectly mundane, how perfectly Simon. "Actually, I might have to work Saturday," I said. "We're behind on the quarterly reports." It wasn't true, but I'd already made plans to meet Lucas at the art museum downtown. He'd mentioned wanting to see the new contemporary exhibit, and I'd surprised myself by saying I'd love to go with him. Simon's face fell slightly. "Oh, okay, maybe another weekend. Maybe." But even as I said it, I was thinking about Lucas, about how he'd look at the paintings with real interest and ask me what I thought, instead of just nodding politely, like Simon always did. Saturday arrived grey and drizzly, perfect weather for an indoor museum visit. I told Simon I was leaving for work and instead drove to meet Lucas at the museum cafe. "You look beautiful," he said when he saw me, and I felt that familiar flutter of excitement. We spent hours wandering through the galleries, discussing art and philosophy and life. Lucas had opinions about everything, passionate views that sparked debates and made me think. When we disagreed about a particular piece, he didn't just nod and change the subject like Simon would have. He engaged, challenged me, made me defend my position. "You're incredibly smart," he said as we sat in the sculpture garden afterward. "Does your husband know how lucky he is?" "Simon thinks I'm smart enough," I said, but even as I said it, I realized I couldn't remember the last time Simon had complimented my intelligence or asked for my opinion on anything more complex than dinner plans. "Smart enough isn't the same as brilliant," Lucas said. "You should be with someone who sees your brilliance." We were sitting close on the bench, his shoulder touching mine. When he turned to look at me, his face was inches away. "Eira," he said softly. I knew what was coming. Knew I should stand up, make an excuse, go home to my husband and daughter. Instead, I stayed perfectly still as Lucas leaned in and kissed me. It lasted maybe 3 seconds. Soft, tentative, full of question marks. When we broke apart, I felt like I was falling. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I shouldn't have—" "Don't," I whispered. "Don't apologize." We didn't talk about it on the drive back to the museum parking lot where I'd left my car. Didn't acknowledge what had just shifted between us. But when Lucas texted me that evening, "Thank you for today, you're amazing," I saved the message and read it 5 times before deleting it. At home, Simon was making dinner while Amelia set the table. "How was work?" he asked, not looking up from the stove. "Productive," I said, which felt true in a way that had nothing to do with quarterly reports. "Good. I took Amelia to the zoo after all. She loved the butterfly exhibit. Guilt twisted in my stomach. While I was kissing another man, Simon was being the perfect father, making sure our daughter didn't miss out on family time just because I'd bailed. That's nice, I managed. During dinner, Amelia chatted about the animals she'd seen, and Simon listened with genuine interest, asking questions and laughing at her descriptions. Watching them together, I felt like an outsider, looking in at a life that no longer fit me. After Amelia went to bed, Simon poured himself a glass of wine and offered me one. "Want to watch a movie?" he asked. "I'm tired," I said automatically. "I think I'll go read." Upstairs, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the kiss over and over. Lucas was right. Life was too short to settle for complicated. But as I listened to Simon moving around downstairs, cleaning up from dinner and getting ready for another week of work, I wondered when exactly I'd decided that his steady, dependable love wasn't enough. My phone buzzed with another text from Lucas. "Can't stop thinking about today." I typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on, "Me either." It was the first completely honest thing I'd said all day. 3 weeks later, Lucas finally said the words I'd been both dreading and hoping to hear. "I'm falling in love with you," he whispered as we sat in his car outside the office after another long dinner together. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Lucas, I know you're married, I know it's complicated, but I can't pretend anymore that this is just friendship." I stared at my hands, twisted my wedding ring around my finger. "I don't know what to say." "Say you feel it too. Say this isn't all in my head." The honest answer was that I'd been falling for him since that first lunch, maybe even since that first smile in the elevator. But admitting it out loud felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. "I care about you," I said finally, "more than I should." "Then leave him." The words came out in a rush. "I know it sounds crazy, but we could be happy together. Really happy. You deserve someone who sees how incredible you are. It's not that simple. There's Amelia to think about, and kids adapt. They're resilient. But you can't sacrifice your happiness for a marriage that's already over." "My marriage isn't over," I protested, though even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Lucas took my hand, thumb tracing circles on my palm. "When's the last time your husband made you feel the way I do? When's the last time he really saw you?" I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. That night, I came home to find Simon reading in the living room, a cup of tea cooling on the side table next to him. "Hey," he said, looking up with a smile. "How was dinner with Maya?" Another lie. They were getting easier and easier. "Fine. Same complaints about her job, same drama with her dating life." Simon nodded and returned to his book, a biography of some historical figure I'd never heard of. So perfectly Simon, educational, safe, predictable. "What are you reading?" I asked, though I didn't really care. He held up the cover. It's about the economic factors that led to World War I. Pretty fascinating stuff about how small policy decisions can have massive consequences. "Sounds riveting," I said, unable to keep the sarcasm out of my voice. Simon looked at me more closely. "Everything okay? You seem on edge lately." "I'm fine, just tired." But I wasn't fine. I was restless, dissatisfied, caught between two different versions of myself. The responsible wife and mother who made dinner and helped with homework, and the vibrant woman who laughed at Lucas's jokes and felt alive in his presence. The next day at work, Lucas asked me to lunch, but I hesitated. "I think we need to slow down," I said. "This is getting too intense." His face fell. "Did I say something wrong yesterday?" "No, it's not that. It's just, I need time to think." "About us?" "About everything." But even as I said it, I knew I was lying to myself. I didn't want to slow down. I wanted to speed up, to see where this connection could lead. The problem was that Lucas was asking me to make a choice I wasn't ready to make. That evening, Maya called while I was making dinner. "You sound miserable," she said after I'd given her a half-hearted update about my day. I'm fine. No, you're not. What's going on with that guy from work? Lucas? I glanced toward the living room where Simon was helping Amelia with her math homework, their heads bent together over her textbook. It's complicated, I said quietly. Honey, life is complicated. The question is whether you're going to let fear keep you from being happy. I have responsibilities. You have one life, and from what you've told me about Simon, he'd probably be happier with someone who actually wants to be there. Maya's words stung because they contained a grain of truth I didn't want to examine too closely. When had I stopped wanting to be here? When had my family started feeling like an obligation instead of a choice? That weekend, we had another family dinner, this time at Anna's house. She'd made her famous pot roast, and the whole family gathered around her dining room table, like we had dozens of times before. Eira, you're picking at your food, Anna observed. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine, I said automatically. She's been working too hard, Simon said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Maybe you should take some time off. His touch felt foreign, like we were strangers pretending to be intimate. I pulled my hand away under the pretense of reaching for my water glass. I'm fine, I repeated. Jack, Simon's younger brother, leaned back in his chair and studied me with the blunt assessment that made him successful in construction. You don't look fine. You look like someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Jack, Simon said quietly. What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. The table fell silent. Amelia looked between the adults with wide, worried eyes. I think I need some air, I said, standing abruptly. I walked out to Anna's back porch and pulled out my phone, scrolling through my messages with Lucas. His latest text was from that morning. Missing you. Hope your family dinner isn't too painful. He understood me in a way these people never had. He saw my frustration with their small talk and smaller ambitions. He got that I wanted more than pot roast and predictable conversations about work and weather. Eira? Simon's voice made me jump. I quickly put my phone away as he stepped onto the porch. Sorry, just needed a minute. Want to talk about what's really going on? There it was again, his patient, gentle concern. Once upon a time, it had made me feel safe. Now, it just made me feel trapped. Nothing's going on, Simon. I'm just tired. You've been tired for months, and distant, and... He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Different. People change. Not like this. Not this fast. He moved closer, and I could see the worry in his eyes. Are you having an affair? The question hit me like a physical blow. What? No. How could you even ask me that? Because you're acting like someone who's having an affair. The late nights, the secrecy, the way you flinch when I touch you. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because if something's going on, I'd rather know now than find out later. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, and saw the fear he was trying to hide. Simon wasn't stupid. He'd noticed the changes, connected the dots, and instead of confronting me or making demands, he was giving me a chance to tell him the truth. I could have done it right then. Could have admitted everything and asked for help fixing what was broken between us. Instead, I chose the coward's path. There's no affair, Simon. You're being paranoid. The relief on his face made my stomach churn with guilt. Okay, he said softly. I'm sorry I asked. I love you, Eira. If there's something wrong, we can work on it together. I know, I whispered, but as we walked back inside to rejoin the family, I was already planning my next text to Lucas. Simon's accusation had shaken me, but not in the way it should have. Instead of making me want to end things with Lucas, it made me realize how much I'd already chosen him over my marriage. The point of no return wasn't a dramatic moment or a conscious decision. It was just another lie, told to the man who loved me enough to give me the benefit of the doubt. 2 months later, everything fell apart in the space of a single afternoon. Lucas and I had been meeting regularly, our relationship deepening into something that felt inevitable. We hadn't slept together. I'd drawn that line and held to it. But we were emotionally intimate in ways that felt more dangerous than any physical affair. I found an apartment, he told me over lunch at our usual cafe. 2 bedrooms, so Amelia could have her own space when she visits. The presumption took my breath away. Lucas, I never said, I know you haven't left him yet, but you will. We both know this can't go on forever. He was right, of course. The lies were getting harder to maintain, and the guilt was eating me alive. But hearing him talk about apartments and custody visits made it real in a way that terrified me. I need more time, I said. How much time? Another month? Another year? I can't keep being your secret forever, Eira. That afternoon, I returned to work distracted and emotional. When my coworker Jennifer stopped by my desk, I barely looked up. Hey, can you cover the phones for a few minutes? I need to run these files to the 3rd floor. Sure, I mumbled, not really listening. 20 minutes later, Jennifer returned with a strange expression on her face. Eira, I think you should know. I saw your husband in the elevator. My blood turned to ice. What? Simon, right? He was coming down from the executive offices. I said hi, but he seemed pretty focused. Simon never came to my office. In 9 years of marriage, he'd never once stopped by unannounced. My hand shook as I tried to think of innocent reasons for his visit, but I came up empty. I called him immediately. Hey, he answered on the 2nd ring, his voice carefully neutral. Jennifer said she saw you here. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. I had a meeting nearby and thought I'd stop by to say hi, but you were at lunch. A meeting? What kind of meeting? Just business stuff, nothing important. But Simon was a terrible liar, and I could hear the strain in his voice. I'll be home at the usual time, I said. Actually, I'm picking up Amelia from school today. Why don't you take your time? He never picked up Amelia on weekdays. Never. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a state of barely controlled panic. When I finally got home at 6, the house felt different somehow. Simon was in the kitchen making dinner, and Amelia was doing homework at the table, but there was a tension in the air that made my skin crawl. How was your day? Simon asked without looking at me. Fine, busy. I'm sure it was. Something in his tone made me look at him more closely. His jaw was tight, his movements precise and controlled. This was Simon angry, which was so rare I almost didn't recognize it. Is everything all right? I asked. Why don't you tell me? Before I could respond, Amelia looked up from her math worksheet. Daddy was asking me about your friend Lucas today, she said innocently. I told him I don't know any Lucas. The world tilted sideways. What? Simon finally met my eyes, and what I saw there made my knees weak. Not anger, that would have been easier to handle. This was disappointment so profound, it felt like looking into an abyss. Can we talk? He said quietly. Privately. We went into his home office, the small room where he'd spent so many evenings working on tax returns and budgets while I texted another man. He closed the door and turned to face me. I hired a private investigator, he said without preamble. The words hit me like a physical blow. You what? 3 weeks ago, I needed to know if I was losing my mind or if my wife was having an affair. Simon, let me finish. His voice was still quiet, still controlled, but there was steel underneath. I have photos, Eira, receipts, phone records. I know about the restaurants, the museum, the long walks in the park. I know you've been lying to me for months. I sank into the chair across from his desk, my legs no longer able to support me. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The only question is whether you're going to keep lying or finally tell me the truth. For a moment, I considered one more lie, one more attempt to gaslight him into doubting his own evidence. But looking at Simon's face, at the pain I'd caused this good, patient man, I couldn't do it anymore. I'm sorry, I whispered. Are you in love with him? The question hung between us like a loaded gun. I could have said no, could have claimed it was just a friendship that got out of hand. Instead, I found myself nodding. Simon closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. How long? A few months. Nothing physical happened, I swear. That almost makes it worse. He opened his eyes and looked at me with something like pity. Do you know what physical affairs are about, Eira? Sex, lust, temporary insanity. But emotional affairs, those are about love, about choosing someone else over your family. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Every time you lied to me, every time you chose to have dinner with him instead of coming home to us, you were choosing him over your family. I started to cry then, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, and now we have to figure out what comes next. What do you mean? Simon opened his desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder. I've been to see a lawyer, Eira. I know my options. The folder felt heavy as lead when he handed it to me. Inside were legal documents I didn't want to read, and financial statements that painted a clear picture of what divorce would look like. You're leaving me? I whispered. You already left me. I'm just making it official. But what about Amelia? What about our family? Our family? Simon's voice cracked for the first time. You threw our family away for some guy you've known for 6 months. Don't you dare talk to me about family now. I wanted to argue, to fight, to make him understand that it wasn't that simple. But looking at the evidence spread across his desk, photos of me laughing with Lucas, restaurant receipts, phone records showing hundreds of texts, I realized he was right. I had thrown it all away, and now I was going to lose everything. The conversation that followed was the most painful of my life. Simon laid out his terms with the same methodical precision he brought to tax returns. Custody arrangements, financial settlements, timelines for me to find somewhere else to live. I won't keep Amelia from you, he said, but I won't pretend this is an amicable divorce either. What you did, it's going to take a long time to forgive. I understand, I whispered. But I didn't understand. Not really. I was still thinking like someone who believed they could fix this, who thought the right words or enough tears could undo months of betrayal. It wasn't until Simon asked me to leave that night, to pack a bag and stay somewhere else while we figured out the details, that I realized how completely I'd destroyed my life. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, I could hear him explaining to Amelia that Mommy was going to stay at Grandma Harriet's for a while. Her confused questions and his patient answers broke my heart all over again. Mommy, Amelia appeared in the bedroom doorway as I zipped up my bag. Are you and Daddy getting divorced like Tommy's parents? I knelt down and pulled her into a hug, breathing in her familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. I don't know, baby. We're just taking some time apart to figure things out. Is it because of your boyfriend? The question stunned me. What boyfriend? The one you text all the time, the one who makes you smile at your phone. Even my 7-year-old had seen what I thought I'd been hiding. The realization made me feel sick. Amelia, It's okay, Mommy. I just want you and Daddy to be happy. As I drove to my mother's house that night, Amelia's words echoed in my head. She wanted us to be happy. But I'd been so focused on my own happiness, my own needs, that I'd forgotten about everyone else's. The next morning, I called Lucas to tell him what had happened. This is good news, he said immediately. I know it's hard now, but this is what we wanted. We can finally be together. Lucas, I'll help you find a lawyer. We'll figure out the custody thing. It's going to be okay, Eira. But as I listened to him make plans for our future, I realized something that should have been obvious months ago. Lucas had fallen in love with the idea of me, the version of myself I presented during our stolen hours together. He didn't know the real me, the woman who could lie to her husband's face, who could betray a man who'd never done anything but love her faithfully. And if he didn't know that woman, how could he really love me? For the first time since this whole mess started, I began to wonder if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life.